Thank you very much to all the presenters, and they have, of course, full background papers from which they've drawn in order to make their very brief presentations. So those who are interested should certainly refer to these larger background papers. The way we were going to proceed is that there are three named discussants: François Bourguignon, Stéphane Claassen, and Grace Bediaco. Right. And each of them will talk for up to about 15 minutes in responding to presentations and considering related issues. So first I want to call on François Bourguignon to speak to these papers. And as obviously all of you probably are aware, that François is the Senior Vice President for Development Economics and Chief Economist of the World Bank. But prior to that, he has had and will have a most distinguished academic career, including professorship in economics at the École des Hautes Études en Sciences Sociales in Paris. And he founded there Delta, the Laboratory for Theoretical and Applied Economics, and has been a fellow of the Econometric Society, has been the editor of various journals, including the World Bank Economic Review and the European Economic Review, and so on. He's, of course, one of the first people to have written on the decomposition of inequality, and has written with Tony Atkinson on multidimensional inequality. So, François, first respondent.
Okay, thank you very much, Sudhir, and good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here to this inaugural seminar for OFI, and on the extraordinarily interesting and fascinating topic, which is this multidimensionality of poverty. I read the papers which were circulated, and I was really very excited reading them, basically because if it is possible to indeed implement those questionnaires in several typical household surveys, then there will be very shortly a mine of studies to do on very important and not very much studied aspects of poverty and welfare. So I have very much admiration for this project, and I really wish good luck to the authors and to OFI as an institution. I'm sure that in the previous session there was already a lot of discussion about the details of those questionnaires, and I will not get back to this. What I try to do is maybe to take up a couple of general points, or more exactly to ask some questions which came to my mind while going through the papers, not having clearly in mind what the general objective of the whole project was, and also listening to the presentation. I guess my first question is about what is the general objective of all this. I understand the interest of all the questionnaires that we just were presented per se. It is fascinating to have questions in a survey on happiness and shame and humiliation. It is very important to know what is the relationship between this and more conventional measures of poverty like income or consumption. What does explain that people are more or less happy for a given level of income, maybe a given environment, a given family size, etc. It is important. The same thing, I was very pleased to listen to the questionnaire on employment in development. I've been always very amazed by the fact that when people talk about employment in a developing country, it doesn't mean really very much. I mean, we know that people need to work in order to earn a living. So by definition, employment is equal to the number of people who find necessary to work to survive. The real issue is what are the good jobs and what are the bad jobs, and how can we determine them? And the questionnaire that we just represented would allow us to answer this kind of question. So this is per se very interesting. Now the problem is there any attempt through all this questionnaire to go beyond that? Is there a more fundamental objective? And this is what I don't have clearly in mind. If the general objective is to offer a better measure of poverty, then I must say I'm a little worried. Last time I worked on multidimensional poverty was some time ago, before I joined the World Bank. Since then I had, I'm afraid, to leave aside academic work. Or let's say that the World Bank were not very interested by second-order dominance concepts. But last time I worked on this, I worked with 2 dimensions, and I found the problem was extraordinarily difficult. Now here we have more than 2 dimensions, we have thousands of dimensions. So what do we want to do? I think that it is important for the group to think about this. I mean, I'm not saying that everything must be done with the idea of giving or proposing a comprehensive measure of poverty, but I think it would be useful to have in mind what is the final, or what is the fundamental objective that the whole program would like to answer, would like to shed light on in the long run. It may be the measure of poverty, it may be the impact or the effects of poverty, it may be very different things. Michael Walton here is in the audience. He headed this World Development Report that we produced 2 years ago in the World Bank on equity and development. And one very important question that we were asking in that report was to what extent empowerment, or the lack of empowerment, is leading to economic situations which are inefficient. So this would be a very interesting question to be asked through this set of questions. So again, I think that there is something to be done in that direction. And also, if at the end of the process this overall project wants to shed light or to be useful for policy making, it is quite important to, at the same time that this questionnaire is being thought about, to have in mind the kind of policy questions that can be answered. We have seen some examples, but it seems to me that the reflection should go a little deeper. So this is my general question about the process. Again, this is a question to Sabina, but again, I think it is a question which is worth discussing. Now I have a couple of general remarks of different nature. So let me take them point by point. The first thing is the questionnaires insist on international comparability. This is good. We certainly all want to have international indicators which are internationally comparable. It is not always very easy. Lately I was reading that in this study of happiness by Kahneman and Associates, my fellow French citizens were among the most unhappy people on earth. I was not surprised. Not surprised. But what does that mean exactly? I mean, the definition of the way in which people feel is something which is in the culture of a country, and it's not completely clear that it's possible to compare worlds which are culturally completely different. And the reason why I'm saying that in our work on poverty in the World Bank, I would say the problem of international comparability may not be the most important problem. Today the main problem is intertemporal comparability. I'm not saying that $1 a day, $2 a day is a fantastically sophisticated poverty measure. We know all the limitation of these. We also know that there are other dimensions that are being taken into account in the MDGs. But the real issue that we're facing in many, many countries is the fact that we are not able to follow over time the evolution of all those various dimensions of poverty in terms of income, in terms of life expectancy, infant mortality, school enrollment or school completion rate. We are not able simply because we don't have two data at two different points of time, which would allow us to say, okay, this country is making progress, or is not making progress in this area, or is not making progress in that region, and then try to understand why it is the case. And the intellectual comparison, I would say, is not so much comparing two absolute figures at one point of time. I would prefer to compare two changes. It is, the well-known concept of difference in difference. What matters, I think, what is significant, and what we can rely on as an instrument to do diagnosis is really this difference in difference, intertemporal comparisons of intertemporal changes. And I think that this is something that should be kept in mind in this area. Another remark I would like to make is that I found somewhat surprising that the concept of capability is not as essential in the questionnaires that we just heard as it could be. For example, in the case of employment, I would say that the nature of employment, of course, matters very much, and whether this is a risky job or not risky job, safe, unsafe, etc. This matters very, very much. But there is more than that. In the framework of capability, what we would be interested in is the employability of somebody. Is it possible for somebody to find a job when a job is needed? And we have in the bank a fantastic study of this type, which was on Ecuador, very simple natural experiment story. In one village, a firm created a company which was cultivating and exporting cut flowers. And then immediately there were a lot of job opportunities for women in that village. Now, an analysis was done of the way in which the allocation of tasks within households were modified because of that. So, of course, what was found is that more women were going to work, and as they were going to work within their own household, the allocation of tasks was changing. But much more interesting was the fact that when a control group was looked at, where women didn't go to work, they stayed at home, the same kind of change in the task allocation within the household had taken place. Which means that the empowerment within the household depended not so much on the fact that the woman was employed, depended on the fact that the woman could tell the husband, look, if you're not satisfied with this arrangement, I'm going to work and I'll get some cash, and then I'll have more power in the household. So this is an example which shows that what matters really is this employability, it's a potentiality, and in some cases in the questionnaire, I thought that this dimension could be employed used in a more systematic way. The environment divorce laws or laws about inheritance, whether you can the land can go to the woman or not, all this matters a lot and is part of the capability. Other concept that I think we should keep in mind is variability. The fact that in those surveys we ask people questions at one point of time. It may be the case that at another point of time the answer would be different. And it matters a lot because if we are looking at the cross-section, then part of the disparities across individuals in the cross-section may essentially be due to natural fluctuation of attitude toward some aspects of life. And this is particularly true when we look at subjective views on well-being, etc. Another concept which I think is missing, and also is very linked to the capability, although the word has been used in the presentations, is the concept of vulnerability. But not vulnerability in the sense, which are the vulnerable groups? Which are the groups where we find this kind of weakness or this kind of unhappiness, or this kind of shame or humiliation, or this kind of violence? It is vulnerability in the sense that the situation in which a household individual is may change very rapidly, very abruptly, and may create a phenomena like poverty traps. In the case of jobs, for example, a very important dimension is what is the security of the job? What is the probability that the person who is being interviewed will lose the job in the coming days, or will see his or her earnings changing very quickly from a day to the next? What is the probability that some illness will hit somebody in the family and will reduce the consumption power in the family? This, and coming with this, of course, what are the ways to mitigate this kind of risk, and what are the ways of adapt if the risk indeed materializes? What is the kind of insurance, in other words, formal or, of course, more likely informal insurance that are available? Again, this is a dimension of poverty which we find is extremely important and until now has not been really very well taken into account, and it would be a fantastic opportunity to use those questionnaires to do that. And my final point is, after capability, variability, vulnerability, relativity. And by relativity, what I mean is the following. I think it would be many of the concepts that are being analyzed are important or maybe defined very often with respect to the environment in which people live. The concept of happiness, we know, depends very much, not so much on the absolute level of income. If it was the case, then the French people would be very happy. But it may depend on the way in which people compare themselves with others. And it may not matter a lot. I mean, this is the old debate on what matters in terms of inequality. This is the old debate with Amartya Sen on the famous subgroup decomposability axiom in poverty measurement. The fact that people tend to compare themselves with not everybody in society, but with their peers, their neighbors, their family, etc. And because of the depth of many of the concepts that are being analyzed through this questionnaire, I think it would be worth the day the questionnaire are introduced in the survey, it would be really worth to try to introduce in the way in which the survey is taken this possibility of finding out what is going on around in the neighborhood. So it is slightly different type of survey, but this collective aspect of many of the questions which are being asked, I think, is important. But let me close here. Again, I'm really fascinated by this, and I hope that very quickly we will see those surveys, and we will see first a descriptive analysis of what they are telling us, and I'm sure that this will be extremely interesting. Thank you very much.